Okay everybody, welcome back to the channel. So recently I've done a review of the new PXG 0211 driver, the driver that's coming in at around that £300 mark, so different price point for PXG, and the performance was really quite impressive. So it's got me thinking I'm going to put it up now up against probably one of the higher priced drivers in the category, driver category, in terms of the Titleist TSi2. So these are coming in around the sort of £500 mark. So there's a good £200 difference between these two drivers. I've got them spec'd up the same, so we're going to put them head to head. We're going to see if there's any differences, maybe a little bit my personal feedback of the looks and the feel, and we'll see how these two drivers perform. Okay, so we're going to start off with the TSi2 from Titleist. So this is obviously the one with the weight fixed in the back section, very similar to the PXG. No adjustability of weight, but obviously we've got neck sleeve adjustability. Got it set at A1, 9° head set at 9°, and I've got a 45-inch shaft in X 60 gram and the same in the PXG, same length and flex. So, as I say, we'll start off with the TSi2. Okay, and that's a nice strike to start off with. Okay, so as I say, these are 45-inch in length, so they're not a typical standard. You see a lot of the brands now at 45.5. 45 comes as standard in the PXG. Obviously, this would be more of a custom option in terms of 45, but you can have them obviously whatever length you desire. So maybe on that reflect, club head speed might not be in and around that sort of 114 mark that I would generally sort of see. And as we know, with the Titleist, it's a great looking head. Obviously, TSi2, slightly bigger footprint as you're putting it down, a little bit more longer in that back section there, but just very plain, black gloss, just the small TSI logo in as an alignment aid, sits lovely behind that golf ball. And feels and sounds really, really good. That's probably the one thing I was really impressed with the Titleist, is the sound and the feel of it off the club face. Very solid on that connection, and the acoustics of the ball as it comes off that club face. Again, really good sound. I do enjoy the sound. That little bit low, slightly low on that strike, but again, spin's good, controlled. See, that launch just suffers a little bit when I get that low strike, but it's one of those shots you'll take every day of the week on that golf course because it's down that middle, it's in play. And that's the other thing we're obviously going to take a look at between these two drivers, dispersion. Obviously, distance is always a big talking point, but I think dispersion is equally as important. Okay, these just seem to be coming out very consistent on the window, just a little bit of left to right, just touch heel on that particular strike, just exaggerates that little bit of left to right shape a tiny bit. Again, good spin. Just fractionally working up that left side, but again, good strike, good sound, good feel, love that ball flight. Okay, so there's 5 shots hit with the TSi2. Let's jump into the PXG and we'll hit 5 with that. Okay, so 0211 PXG, obviously a very interesting driver from PXG in terms of their business model. A price they're coming in at now, which is around that sort of £300 mark. So it's obviously jumping to that very low price point for drivers, but we've still got that adjustability in the hosel. We've got a fixed weight in the back. We've got a bit of technology in and around the head, carbon crown and things like that. So a lot of club for your money, aren't you, in a way? Obviously, if you see my review video, the numbers were pretty impressive, really, and it was a good drive. I like the look of it, the sound of it, and everything like that. Obviously, comparing it against TSi2 in terms of a look, it's quite different. And what I mean by that is it's maybe not quite as long from that front to the back. It's not a million miles away. It sits very square, as does the TSi2, but obviously we've got more of a matte black finish. So, you'll either like that or you're not. You've got that darker strip at the front and then that lighter section at the back with that little bit of carbon, whereas obviously TSi2 is just that black gloss and it's plain. So, it's more of a quieter look. It's more of a sleeker look probably with the TSi2. Probably what I'd say is it looks a little bit more newer because it's polished, just my opinion there. So a little bit cleaner. Again, it's personal, isn't it, on the choice of what you like, they'll sort of look off, but I think the PXG looks good. Blacked out face, sits very nice and square. We've got that adjustability. Okay, that felt good as well. That's a nice strike, nice flight. So what you'll probably just see a little bit maybe on the ball flights there, just moving up with that right hand side a touch, but again, spin 2,600, not the quickest of ball speeds on that particular one. Again, that's a good strike. That's a lovely window that's come out at ball flight. 11.6 on that degrees, 161 ball, good spin, 2.7, 283 carry. So what I did find on my review video, if you've watched it, if you haven't, I put a little link and you can go and have a little look more in depth at the technology around this driver. But what I saw was as I just subtly moved my strike around the club face, you know, a little bit low, little bit heel, tendency I would get a high spinning golf shot. The spin was very, very sort of controlled, what I found with that. So, you know, the spin was very, very controlled around those slight little imperfections of strike. And that's a good example there. That's that little heel one, just starts up the left. It cuts back a tiny bit. You can see that strike on screen. But look at that spin, see 2.4. I would typically see that spin go up near that 3,000 mark for sure. Again, that's the typical shot you hit. You think, oh, I've just misstruck that. And you see the ball sort of, it tends to be a little bit more of a weaker, sort of little cutty shot. But it always tends to sort of find the fairway, doesn't it, those sort of shots? But you just know, oh, I'm not really quite hit that. And the playing partners go, oh, that's a good shot. And you're just thinking, oh, I'm not quite hit that, but you'll take it. That's a better strike. It's come out a little bit low, you see, yeah, just a little bit lower in the face there, but that did come out very nicely. Again, 2.6, really consistent on that spin. That's what I did find in my review video, really consistent on that spin number. So as I mentioned earlier, obviously this is a 9 degrees, playing at 9 degree and a 45-inch in the length, and that's standard that this driver comes in for PXG. So it's not as long as other drivers out there on the market. Same length as obviously what I've fitted into that Titleist for this particular comparison. Okay, and that's again good. I do like the sound of that driver. It is a little bit different to the Titleist, but I think the Titleist just sounds a little bit more solid on that sound of the club as you strike it. But again, the numbers are really good with that PXG. Okay, so it's 5 shots hit with each there. Let's just jump into those numbers a little bit more detail and just compare them against each other. Okay, so have a look at the dispersion numbers or the rings to start off with. Obviously, this is really important with drive. You know, we need to try and keep that ball in play as best we can because we know that's going to help to lower scores when we're out on that golf course. So we can maybe see there with the yellow being the PXG, the white being the Titleist. Titleist obviously looks a lot tighter there, isn't it? A couple up the right, just that one up that left-hand side, which was that heel strike with the PXG. Obviously, that is a little bit more me than the club itself, but on that small sample test, I appreciate we're only hitting 5 of each club scene. Obviously, through a trialing session or a fitting session that you may well go through, you're obviously going to hit a lot more shots than that. So on this sort of test there, just a little bit tighter, maybe Titleist just winning slightly a little bit more on that dispersion. And then when we look at the sort of numbers there, so club head speed 111.6, 112.1, so literally half a mile an hour difference on average on those shots, so hardly anything in it on there. Ball speed wise, you can see 161.3 against 162.5, so a little bit more ball speed with the Titleist in relation to the PXG. Again, my little bit of strike is obviously going to influence, must have hit that strike pattern a little bit more better or a little bit more central with the Titleist, which we'll have a look at in a minute. Launch angle 10.9, 10.4, which is pretty usual for me. Tend to get a low ones in there, which I have done. Spin number 2.6 and 2.5, both very similar, and obviously carrying out very, very similar on the numbers. And then we'll just have a little look at the strike patterns there. So this was the Titleist, so heat patch on all 5 of those strikes. So you can see pretty central there. If I'm missing it, I tend to get it a little bit low, slightly in that heel side, which is a typical one for me. And then looking at the PXG one there, a little bit of a better strike catch, a little bit more sort of up the club face, a little bit more towards a toe, still in that central part. So the fact that the Titleist got a little bit more ball speed on those slight low heel strikes was quite impressive, really. Okay, so there we go. And as we're probably going to expect, there's not huge differences between these two clubs. Subtle little differences, probably a little bit more around my strike there more than anything. Again, I think the big differences there is going to be that look and the feel of the golf club. And I think for me, you know, out of those two clubs, I do like the look of both. Obviously, they are different and in their different own ways. I think for me, the Titleist just looks better, cleaner. That glossy finish, it just appeals to me a little bit more. sits really, really nice and square. And then in terms of the sound, the feel, again, both are really, really good. And this is obviously my personal feelings here, but I think the Titleist just has that little bit more of that solid sound to it. You know, it's just a really good sounding golf club. I think that's the big thing we found with this through my initial testing when it first came out, and then obviously we've been doing sort of fittings here at Penrith Golf Club, and the feedback has always been the sound. It sounds so good, and it does. I agree with that. So I think that will just edge it again on there. Numbers wise, there's nothing really sort of splitting it. Quite a little edge there that we've got a touch more ball speed on that slight low heel, but there's nothing going to split it there. But you've got to remember there's £200 difference between these two clubs, which is a lot of money. Okay, so that's probably going to swing your buying decision. I'd love to hear your thoughts as always. Interesting one from PXG, how they've sort of placed themselves in that market, and it's very competitive. It's going to be interesting to see how these other brands react to this going forward. It'll be a very interesting one to follow. But yeah, post your comments down below, let me know your thoughts as always. Are you going to go for the looks and pay that extra, or are you going to go for the sort of cheaper option, and maybe then you've got money to put into a fairway, haven't you? You know, we've got to look at it that way as well. Okay, appreciate you watching the video as always. If you've enjoyed it, do share it around, hit the like button, but more importantly, subscribe if you haven't done so. If you have, appreciate your support as always, and hopefully we'll catch up with you all very soon.